Hey everybody, it's Frozen with Outdoor Adventures, and thanks for joining me for part 3 of the beginner hammock camping series. Now in this video we're going to be talking about suspensions. And when I say suspensions, I'm referring to how you are attaching your hammock to a tree. There's lots of different suspensions out there. In this video I'm going to cover the 3 basic ones to get you started. A lot of people start out with 550 paracord for their suspension, and I don't understand why. Maybe lack of research, I guess. This is a terrible and horrible idea for a suspension choice for a hammock. The secondary reason being that this is stretchy. You don't want to use something that's stretchy for a hammock suspension. But the most important reason is that this will dig into the bark of a tree. And sometimes it will even kill the tree. A lot of state parks and a lot of national parks have been outlawing hammocks just because there's some individuals that didn't do their own research and they're using this crap for their hammock suspension. What we want to use is some type of webbing, and this is webbing. Hopefully you can see it against my black shirt. This is what is known as a tree hugger. You can see that there is a loop on here and a loop on the other side to attach your hammock to. So what you would essentially do with this is you'd wrap it around a tree, maybe a couple times, and then hook your suspension into that. So we're going to get into tree huggers, we're going to get into tree straps, Whoopie slings, cinch buckles, and also what I started out with, which is a daisy chain system. So without further ado, let's get into hammock suspensions. So this is a daisy chain webbing, and basically all it is it took a polyester strap, basically a seatbelt strap. They doubled it up, and then at every couple inches, maybe every 4 or 5 inches, they put a stitch in, making little loops all the way down the suspension. Now I can take my continuous loop of my hammock. This is a continuous loop. This loop basically runs through the channel of the hammock. That's why it's called a gathered end, because they gather this end, they run a loop through it, and then they put it through itself. This other little rope right here is the ridge line. Remember I said we could remove the ridge line? It's as simple as just sliding it off that continuous loop. But we can attach a carabiner to the end of that continuous loop, and we can hook in at whatever interval we want into the daisy chain. So if I wanted to hang it really low, I could take it down here and we'd be connected just like that. So pretty easy adjustment on here based on, whatever loop you use. However, the one problem with this is, well, I guess there's a couple problems with this. Not only is it heavier than it needs to be, like I said, it's 2 pieces of polyester doubled up on itself, and then at certain intervals, it's stitched to make, like I said, a chain of loops. Say to get the perfect hang, to feel the most comfortable, I needed a loop that was basically in between this stitch and this stitch. I couldn't do that because I would have to drop down to the lower stitch or the higher stitch depending on how much adjustment I needed. Now that's fine. For people that really don't care about fine tuning or adjusting their hammock like that, that's fine. And there are better daisy chain straps out there. This is probably, I'm gonna be honest, this is probably the worst daisy chain that you can buy. I know Hammock Gear and Dutchware make some daisy chain that's really, really light, but the same problem exists when you want to go ahead and fine tune it. Now, there's nothing wrong with this suspension. I just feel it's easier to use what's called a cinch buckle suspension. So let's go take a look at that. So this is a cinch buckle suspension. This is what I have on my primary camping hammock. Now for me, I keep trying different suspensions. I keep messing around with Whoopie slings, which is what we're gonna get into next. I keep trying a toggle system with the Whoopie slings. Keep going back between Whoopies and cinch buckles over the years. But what I've found, at least for a beginner who doesn't want to worry about all the headaches of adjusting and worrying if they're going to fall or setup time, this is just, for me, the easiest option. All this is, and I will take the webbing out so I can show you, it's a little metal buckle with a toggle in here to stop the line from moving, and this hooks into your, ignore these little extra blue lines, this just hooks into your hammock again through that continuous loop, and you can see that it just hooks right onto the end of that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our polyester strap right here, and we're just gonna thread it through the cinch buckle and then back down through itself so it'll catch on that little toggle. And what we can do with this is we basically have unlimited adjustment. So we wanna go up high, there you go. If you wanna go down low, just pull it back out. We have unlimited adjustment. We don't need to go up in between those daisy chain loops because we can use the entire length of our webbing. So what you do is you just hook it around a tree, put up your hammock, and then you're done. That's why I like the cinch buckle suspension so much. Now you can easily adjust this down by moving this toggle that holds the straps together, but whenever you put weight, i.e. your body weight in it, it's not going to go anywhere. The force of that toggle in there hitting the strap will cause it not to move. And this is a pretty light strap too. So we talked about the 1-inch width. So, but how about length? What do I prefer for, a cinch buckle system? I'd say if you're going to try to go with a cinch buckle system, look between 12 and 15 feet. I wouldn't go any less and I wouldn't go any longer than that. So hopefully that helped. But this is my suspension of choice just because I don't really have to think about stuff. I just wrap it around a tree, tighten up my strap, and then I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. So let's go over and check out the Whoopie slings, which are definitely more fun to play with. So this is a Whoopie sling suspension. We were talking about the continuous loop on the other two hammocks. This one, if you ignore the ridge line again, this one, the suspension, the Whoopie sling, is actually looped directly into the hammock channel on the body. But this Whoopie sling has a loop on the end and it will hook right into your hammock. So you can either do it that way, or we're gonna show you another way after we're done with this. Basically, a Whoopie sling operates like a Chinese finger trap. Whenever you were little, you put your fingers in the trap and you tried to pull it out and you couldn't get it out. So the way a Whoopie sling works is that it's just a continuous piece of rope and then it's threaded into itself. You guys can see that right there. So if I pinch this and pull it, you can shorten or lengthen your suspension however you want it. Now on the other side, there's just that little end of rope. And if we, again, pinch it like that Chinese finger trap and pull it, we can shorten up the line that's going to be attached to the tree. And then if you're wondering about this little bead on the end, this basically stops the line from being pulled down into itself. So you guys can really see how that they made that Whoopie sling. So in, right through, and then out. So the way we attach this to our tree is we either fix this onto the tree hugger via one of those loops, or we use what's called a toggle system. A toggle system is basically, it's just a little stick that you put in some webbing and you just hang it on the knot. On the knot, not the toggle. But anyway, I can raise and loosen my hammock as needed. So we're gonna tighten it up just a little bit. And that is a Whoopie sling. Now there's also, like I said, some things you can do with your Whoopie sling. Some hardware that you can get from this awesome guy called Dutchware. So we're gonna take a look at that right now too. Okay, so here we have another Whoopie sling, only this one, you can see that we have just the continuous loop on here. The Whoopie sling is not attached to the hammock, it's actually attached to the tree hugger. And we connect our hammock suspension to the hammock via a Whoopie hook. And now this is sold by DutchwareGear.com. There's other ways that you can attach, but this is just one example. So what we'll do is we'll just take the Whoopie hook and the continuous loop and just hook it in there. And that attaches, and we can still use the Whoopie sling just like we did on the other side to raise and lower the suspension. So I guess we're gonna get into a knot because I don't think I can beat around the bush any longer. How in the world do I attach my Whoopie sling to the tree hugger? Let's take a look right now. So if you remember back to my PCT bear bagging video on the beginner backpacking series, we're gonna make that same knot, that marlin spike hitch, but we're gonna use a toggle instead of a stick. So let's see if I can do this. I can't do this backwards for whatever reason. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a loop Okay, just a simple loop. So here's the webbing, here's the loop, and we're gonna flip it up over itself, and we're gonna take our 2 fingers and grab that webbing that's behind it, okay? This is where we're gonna put our toggles, but let me show you that one more time. Just a loop, real simple. Flip it up, grab the webbing behind it, and we're gonna put our toggle into the webbing and pull it tight. So on this side, we're using the Whoopie hook. So we have just this non-adjustable line, and then the adjustment comes right below it. So we can use either end. It doesn't matter if you're using the adjustable end or the continuous loop on the Whoopie sling. But we're gonna hook it in to the toggle, both sides. Now what we don't want to happen is we don't want to hook the Whoopie sling onto the toggle itself, because whenever you apply pressure, you're just going to bend your toggle. What we want to do instead is make sure the top is on the knot, okay? So you can see that we're hanging on the knot, and the toggle is stopping the knot from undoing itself. So we can apply all the pressure we want, and it's not going to matter. So that is how we do a Whoopie and toggle suspension. And you want to, for the most part, get this toggle as close to the tree as you can. Now, remember we were talking about the tree hugger with 2 loops sewn into it. We can take that double looped tree hugger and go around the tree a couple times. And then we can take, either a carabiner and hook it into our suspension, or we could run the loop through itself, just like we did with the blue line above it. So let me say this about Whoopie slings. Whoopie slings are a lot of fun to play with. They're very, very versatile. They're adorable. They hold up over time. Though you do have to watch the fraying of the lines. You should check it every time you leave for a trip and every time you get back from a trip to make sure that there's no wear. That's just a general rule of thumb in all of your hammocks. Check your hammock, check your suspension, check your cinch buckles, make sure there's no wear on any kind of hardware like that as well. But the thing with Whoopie slings, if you're not utilizing a toggle system, and this is where I start to not like Whoopie slings. For me, I have to use a toggle system. I like to get as close to the tree as possible. And just the way the Whoopie slings are designed, if you're using a 6 foot or something strap, even if you keep going around the tree a couple times, sometimes the length just doesn't work out. Maybe it's a bigger tree and you got 2 trees that are really close together, then you need to find a way so you don't have all this extra space in between, because the way a Whoopie sling's set up is, like I said, it runs through itself. So you have this extra 6 or 7 inches right here that are not adjustable. So you're still hanging, no matter what, you're hanging this far away from the tree. Now that may not seem like a big deal, but there have been times where I haven't been able to get the right distance away from the tree in the hammock, and I just have this incredibly loose setup that is really, really uncomfortable to sleep in. So that's something you gotta watch out with Whoopie slings. With cinch buckles, there's really no issues because you can crank that thing right down to the tree and not have a problem. So like I said, for a beginner hammock camper, I think cinch buckles are the way to go. They're easy to set up, they offer unlimited adjustments, and they're just simple. More than likely, in another future video, probably toward the end of the series, I'm gonna get into what's called a J-bend and a Beckett hitch. Now these are basically knots that you can tie to your continuous loop on your hammock with just your webbing. So you can save the weight of a Whoopie sling, and you can also save the weight of having to bring hardware like a cinch buckle or a Whoopie hook. And it attaches fairly easily. However, if you want to do any kind of fine tuning, raising it up, lowering it down, you have to completely undo the knot and start over again. So that's why we're gonna cover it in more advanced topics. Let's talk about knot tying and tarps first, to get you guys hanging, and then we'll go back and revisit some more advanced topics. Anyway, guys, I'm Frozen with Outdoor Adventures. I'll see you in the next one.